And we are ready to begin. Hello!
Hello!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Torn Book Club. I am Josh, and with me again is Eve. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
No, I'm glad to be back.
And there are a bunch of people in the chat now. Looks like we got Light of the King, Rovandir, Eravandi, maybe some others who I haven't seen yet. So this week we are discussing Jane Austen and Charles Dickens and that whole period of literature, or as much as we can squeeze into an hour or an hour and a half. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and Eeva is back. Eeva is here too. So on Facebook, Light of the King and Eeva have said that they are big fans of both Austen and Dickens, and so I encourage both of you to Skype in, if you're able to discuss. I was doing some research, and I guess you were doing some research too, so
Yeah, no one actually checked my qualifications to be on this episode, so...
We'll see. I'm hardly qualified to talk about anything on this show. So.
I am a fan of Austen and Dickens, but I can't say that my fandom or knowledge goes quite as deep as the Harry Potter or Game of Thrones stuff, so...
Yeah.
We'll see how well we manage.
We'll see how it goes. So,
but I'm looking forward to a lot of help from you guys.
But before we get into that, we'll go over the normal stuff that we do. Of course, as you know, our book of the month this month is J.R.R. Tolkien's Beowulf, hence why we are discussing the classics this month. I don't know how far everybody else is in it. I'm still sort of making my way through it. I've been finishing up a very big project at work, which is, cross fingers, almost done.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
Oh, I'm sure.
But,
is this another big secret project, or?
Well, this one I've talked about before. It's Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah. Right. I have some friends who are extremely excited about that.
It's going to be good when it's done. But getting there has been quite the adventure, to say the least.
I don't doubt it.
So I'm still going through Beowulf. It's pretty good stuff. Like it's not as difficult to read as I was expecting it to be. Like, I was expecting to just be confused by the language and thinking, oh my god, I don't know what's going on. Who is this? What's going on? What's happening here? But, I mean, it flows very well. I was surprised.
That's good. I haven't started it yet, but I'm planning to.
Okay. Another fun announcement that isn't really Torn Book Club related, but it is related to both you and I, is we play roles in an audio drama called The Katniss Chronicles. Mm-hmm. It is an unofficial adaptation of the Hunger Games, and this is season 3, which is starting June 24th. Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, and it's season 3, so it's Mockingjay, so it's sort of timed with the movies a little bit. Mm-hmm. You'll probably get spoilers if you listen to the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I found that the movie of Catching Fire for me was a little bit ruined from having listened to the Katniss Chronicles audiobooks. Not because I'd already read the book, so it wasn't about spoilers. It was more about the fact that because the audio drama really includes everything that's in the books is there, plus more that's been brought in to enhance it as an audio drama version, that watching the movie I was like, but this thing and this thing and this thing, I was much more indignant about the stuff they left out. Like the limitations of the movie format. I'm
curious to see how they handle a particular scene that I do in Mockingjay, where I basically kill off a main character. I won't say who. If you've read the books, you probably can guess.
Yeah. I might have been involved in that scene too. So.
And it was
actually, I think I die in that scene.
You might
not as the main character you're talking about, obviously.
But
I think that's the end of me.
If you die in that scene, then I probably killed you too. I killed a lot of people in that scene.
Yeah.
It was a really intense scene, which I believe in the book they sort of don't really show it. It sort of happens off screen because it's all from Katniss's perspective.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, she can just hear it. Which,
Yeah,
with the audio drama, I think you still just hear it.
You hear it, but it's like...
It's a little more
you're,
immediate.
You're more in it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious to see how they handle that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And how it matches up, because, like, it was pretty intense, what we did. So,
yeah, it was interesting, because when I first read the book, I felt like it was almost more shocking for not seeing it, because the character is such a prominent character, and then it's just like, oh, nope.
Dead.
Not coming. Gone. And it was just very... Like, whoa, really? Wait, really? What, really?
Which is like that happens in Harry Potter, too. Like, Mad-Eye Moody gets killed completely off screen.
Yeah. So you almost doubt that he's actually dead. You're like, there's no body, therefore probably still alive.
Yeah. But nope, dead.
Nope.
So, let us get into the main discussion.
Yes.
And we'll start with, who do we have up first here? Jane Austen. Yes. And Jane Austen, I think, is probably the easier to discuss of the two, because her work is not quite as prolific as Charles Dickens.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
She
only lived to 41.
Yeah, she only lived to 41.
So.
She only published 4 books while she was alive, and then 2 more posthumously. Mm-hmm. But like reading her biography, or a sum up of her biography on Wikipedia, it was interesting to hear her about her life and how because I found that one of the big I guess mistaken assumptions about Austen is that her books came from the Victorian period, which they do not. They're actually quite a bit before the Victorian period. I think they came out in the early 1800s, like 18 teens or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was a period called the Regency.
Yeah, she actually started writing in the late 1700s, but the ones that she published was in the... It wasn't until later on that her earlier writings came out.
And a lot of her stuff, like, didn't get published until many years after she had finished them. Mm-hmm. Because she was a woman, and being a published author as a woman back then was not something you did.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them were actually published anonymously.
It was actually interesting, because I think that, I mean, I hope the Austen fans will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember reading that the first couple that she published were published with just a lady as the author.
Yeah.
So it was admitting it was a woman, but not who it was.
Right. That's certainly possible. And I think...
And I don't know if they thought that, being as her books were mostly about female concerns and with female protagonists, and were... they were satires of the popular kind of romances and sentimental novels of the day, but dealing with those same sort of subjects, maybe they thought it would give them more credibility.
Yeah. Here it is.
Having the author be a lady.
First edition from Sense and Sensibility, a novel written by a lady.
Mm-hmm. So as opposed to a lot of female authors who published their stuff under pseudonyms to hide the fact that they were female because they were afraid their stuff wouldn't sell, that was apparently the only part they were willing to admit.
Yeah, which was interesting. What is Temple saying? It was very typical of the time. That's why many female writers wrote under male pen names.
Yeah.
And this is true. Hello, I stole the One Ring.
Hello.
And what was more interesting about her was like, her books never really garnered a lot of popularity while she was alive. Like, they weren't disliked. They were fairly well reviewed, but were never any runaway hits.
No, but they did start gaining some popularity. There was a letter of hers where she talked about one of her brothers, I want to say Henry,
probably
encountering. He was the one who I think published several of hers after she passed away. But he was out of the country, and he encountered some people who were talking favorably about Pride and Prejudice, and was immediately she was writing in her letter about, of course, he immediately told them who wrote them.
Yeah. So it's it was interesting. Because I think, according to this, like, her biggest commercial success while she was alive was probably Mansfield Park, which did fairly well. But then later, when they published Emma, they did a second edition of Mansfield Park, And apparently Mansfield Park did so poorly that basically all the finances that they were able to get from the publication of Emma pretty much sort of balanced out the loss. So yeah, she was never really a financial success as a writer while she was alive. And it wasn't until much, much later that her books started getting some recognition in academic circles.
I think it was after one of her nephews wrote a biography of her, and it sort of revived interest in her novels. Yeah. And then they started publishing more of the things that she had not published before she passed.
And they started republishing stuff, and a lot of that happened in probably the 1830s towards the 1850s. So that was more in line with
when Dickens was publishing.
With Dickens and the Victorian era. So that's probably how a lot of people mistake her for being a Victorian author. So I guess some of the things that what's Aravandi saying here? I've heard that some female writers in genres like fantasy still write either with pen names or only using initials because they're afraid that boys won't want to read fantasy written by a woman.
Well, that's what happened with J.K. Rowling. That's why she wrote under J.K. Rowling, because her publisher advised her that they would be less likely to sell if people knew, even in this day and age, that it would be less likely to sell if they knew a woman wrote it.
Yeah.
Or at least that little boys would be less likely to want to read the Harry Potter books.
And that may have been true at the time. I don't think it's true anymore. No. And probably thanks to J.K. Rowling.
Well, the Harry Potter books changed a lot.
They did indeed. Light of the King is asking if she should Skype in. Yes, please do.
Yeah, if you've got stuff to add, by all means.
She's listening to a commercial right now, so she might have missed us saying that, so we'll wait until her commercial is done.
But Austen was interesting because with a lot of her books being based around marriage and courtship and relationships, she herself was single her whole life. She had a few relationships, I think, that are known.
A couple, and I think she only ever got one official marriage proposal.
Right.
To somebody who she was never going to marry.
She accepted and then ran for the hills.
Yeah.
But, so at a time when it was very uncommon to be a spinster, basically. She was the spinster aunt, and she was a writer from a very young age.
Yeah, she wrote a lot of poetry as a teenager. Which later she compiled into wow. Oh my god.
Published in 1922, this version.
Wow.
Love and Friendship and a bunch of her others. So a lot of her poems and letters are in here, and short things, but she was also somewhere between 14 and 17, depending on what I read, when she wrote this Love and Friendship, which was written as a series of letters that she probably read aloud to her family or to her friends, but it was basically her first satire of those popular romance novels of the day, and it features these young women that spend a lot of time just fainting at every time at the drop of a hat, and relationships all over the place, and mysterious young men coming out of nowhere, all these things that were kind of the staples of the romance novel that are being completely sent up in this by a girl who was in her mid-teens.
Yeah.
So she obviously had her target firmly in sight.
Yeah, and given what she was writing about, that target never really changed.
No, and some of the people that I was reading were talking about how you can see kind of the seeds of some of those more well-known characters starting in Love and Friendship, and in some of her very, you can see the beginnings of Fanny Price in this character. You can see the beginnings of, Mr. Darcy in this character. You can see, But they're very silly, these letters. They're very, very silly. And a lot of her books have an element of silliness, which is what makes them so much fun to read.
No, I'm sure. Suzanne is saying, sorry, I have a very hard time valuing
Suzanne
Jane
is
Austen
not a
novels.
fan, I learned yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So, Suzanne, tell us a little bit about your feelings about Jane Austen.
I can't say I'm surprised that Suzanne is not a fan of Jane Austen. I myself have never actually read one of her books. I know, shocker. I have, however, watched the BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice, the big, huge one with Colin Firth, and that was because a mutual friend of ours, Brian, he has his movie days every month, and one month his girlfriend talked him into...
this was one of his girlfriend's movies.
Yeah, his girlfriend talked him into doing a Jane Austen day, and so we all got together and sat down and watched the entirety of the Pride and Prejudice
Excellent.
miniseries in one day.
I mean, I will say Brian has far less rigidly gender-defined tastes in his fandom than a lot of people.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
still not betting that he sat down to watch the entirety of Pride and Prejudice without a
voluntarily. Yeah, I mean,
but
well, yeah, I think he was probably more amenable to it given some of his fandom crushes.
yeah,
He's got a thing for Dean Winchester, which borders on scary. To call it a man crush is to
I think it's very
make light of it.
I think it's very appropriate.
I think so, yeah.
But it's also pretty entertaining.
It's quite entertaining.
But yeah, the Austen novels, I mean, I really like the miniseries, and I was just recently watching the Mansfield Park miniseries for the first time. Mm-hmm. So that one was an interesting one, and I haven't watched the last couple sections because it's quite long. Yeah. BBC miniseries are great because they include everything.
Yeah.
But they're not, I guess they're not for everybody because they include everything. They don't make things concise. They don't try to trim down and make things move a little faster for the medium. It's like, you want a video adaptation of the book. This is what it is.
Yeah, but I sort of felt like the 90s BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice, I mean, I don't know how slavishly faithful to the book it is, but I sort of felt like as a visual narrative, it flowed very well.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I just feel like they're not necessarily for everyone.
No, that's true. And I know that the BBC did another miniseries back in the 70s that I guess was very slavishly faithful to the source and was probably much more boring. But I haven't seen it, so I can't say.
And I don't think being slavishly faithful to the source is necessarily a bad thing. And I think the BBC knows how to do that and keep it interesting and keep it moving, but I know it's not everyone's favorite.
Okay, what is Suzanne saying? I know that poverty was considered very dubious back in the day. Jane Austen's novels tend to show people who are well off enough to have help, i.e. maids, horsemen, etc., yet the characters go out of their way to complicate their own lives. I cannot possibly tell them... I cannot possibly tell them...
Tell him I love him because reasons.
Because reasons, yes.
Well, Jane Austen definitely doesn't... She doesn't present poverty as it's not a theme in her books.
Well, and that
financial situation is a theme.
Yeah, and that was sort of the life that she was born into. She was born into the gentry.
She was lower gentry, middle class.
Yeah,
her family had a working farm. They couldn't afford to keep the girls in school, so they weren't as well off as a lot of her characters are.
Right, but I mean, like, lower middle class gentry back then probably sort of feels like very posh high class today.
Yeah. And that sort of society that her characters are in was the society that she was in. She was participating in the social scene. She was part of a set that was very concerned with marriage and with, making the right match and with finances and, what your income would be after, you were on your own. And it was a very real situation at that time for women especially because...
But, I mean, I do get Suzanne's point. That's probably not the most relatable of situations today. For many people, which I totally understand. What is Light of the King saying? I think it was a complicated time due to the social mores and guidelines. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And Tycho says that's true because part of that is because of the culture of the time, also because women were always in a tenuous situation until they were married. Exactly. Because women weren't trained in marketable skills. They weren't prepared to support themselves at all.
Right.
So it was a case of how much money would they get once they were... apart from their families, once their fathers passed, and how well could they establish themselves in a marriage. And if you were established in a marriage that was unequal socially, then that could be it could be a tenuous position to be in also.
Yeah.
So it was the class
Light of the King, if you want to Skype in at any time, please feel free to do so. And Suzanne says, but then I enjoyed Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey does have similar issues.
Yeah, but I think Downton... also sort of brings it. Downton, first of all, is from a very different time period. It's from a transitional time period after World War I, where the posh upper middle class no longer has the same kind of foothold in society
that it started at the turn of the
century. Yeah, it started with because I think the first
Titanic
scene, the first scene in the first episode was them talking about the wreck of the Titanic, which was 1912. Oh,
got Light of the King.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Josh.
Hey, there you are.
Hey, sorry, I'm turning my volume down. Hold on.
No problem.
Don't turn it down too much.
Volume control.
No, she was turning down the volume on her,
On us.
on us, yeah, so we don't get that weird echo. Hello.
Hey. Sorry, I got the backlight thing. I noticed that we have the same lovely, like, white Melmac
Yeah.
shade.
And my problem here is one of the slats is actually missing. So all this light is coming through.
They're not very reliable.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Suzanne is saying I almost answered my own Skype.
But okay, Austen.
So, yeah.
Speak.
Yes, give us some of your thoughts on Austen.
Yeah, well, I wanted to share some of my, like, favorites. I mean, my number one favorite is Persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And, I know that was obviously, published after she died and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that is a main attraction why so many women, I think that the main thing of that her attractiveness is that she was a woman. I mean, just thinking about that time, which, I mean, I thought that the time that she was actually like writing was kind of that gothic romance. I mean, is that what you guys would call that time frame?
Yeah,
like
yeah, I would.
Grades?
Because I believe there was one book, I think it was a Northanger or Northanger. Northanger Abbey, which was actually written as a satire of that gothic romance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that the strong attraction that is the reason why I think that, especially women, but I think that anyone can appreciate this, is that she was a woman who was doing something that was so out of bounds for women during that time. I mean, she has made stories that have obviously gone through the ages now that she was completely like a woman out of time, in her own time. So that I think is what is very attractive. I mean, along with the idea that, I mean, of course, all of her stories are about romance in that romance sense, and trying to, get over these social mores and guidelines of the times to overcome, the idea that, I mean, they couldn't get a job. They had to find some situation or marriage to live, basically. I mean, just that's how society was. So I think that the core issue for me, that what I love the most, is that the characters, I mean, hopefully most of the characters that I appreciate were actually finding that they could actually find true love and, have some kind of a good life in that, not have to marry just because of money. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the most beautiful things out of her stories.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Persuasion so much, because the whole concept that she was being talked out of marrying Captain Wentworth, because, he didn't have enough money. Mm-hmm. But the idea that this man still loved her, 8 years or 10 years later, whatever it was, I think it was 8 years.
Okay.
And that he held that love for her. So I think it was just, I mean, that's why, of course, we love the story, but so that's something that I appreciate. So
that's interesting. And Suzanne is saying, honestly, it's for those reasons that I prefer Gone with the Wind.
Oh.
Which I can sort of agree with, but doesn't like Rhett just kind of abandon her at the end?
Yeah, he's not the best.
Yeah. I mean, Gone with the Wind is a great book, and it's an absolute classic movie.
Oh, Tycho says the mysteries they were trying to figure out what the gothic romance is that they reference in Northanger, and Tycho says it's the mysteries of Udolpho.
Okay.
I Stole does not like romance in books, which means Austen might not be the best author for her.
Don't worry, we'll get to Charles Dickens in a little bit. You'll be fine.
Yeah. But part of what the appeal of Austen for me, I mean, besides, I really like... sorry, I was hearing myself and I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
It's the language, and it's the fact that it is a satire, so a lot of what's going on is silly, and but the characters are still sincere. You know, like I was just revisiting Emma, and Emma is really entertaining because Emma herself is like, she's a good person at heart, but she's really very thoughtless.
She is,
and she's really very, like, self-absorbed, not selfish. She thinks of herself as a very giving and caring person who tries to do her best for everyone around her, but she does it in a very kind of close-minded and thoughtless sort of way.
Yeah, Emma's my most unfavorite out of all the novels. And I didn't even really like the movie version with Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know, that's one of my not favorites.
But Emma did give us a really good cinematic update of that in Clueless, which I still is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, right, classic. Yeah, classic. But yeah, I mean, I think just for me, even though, as you know, as much as I haven't been a reader most of my life, I think what Austen, I mean, it's absolutely, we talk about the language and the way that she wrote and how she was this kind of, I mean, I'm not going to say rose among thorns, but when you think about the men in writing that were surrounding her, like Sir Walter Scott and all those guys were, kind of writing these stories, and she was just bringing out something of what I felt is truth, and partially part of her own story, that, the story of Tom Lefroy and just all the different parts of her life that she did, bring out in her stories. So that's, I think, what I appreciate most.
Yeah.
And there really is definitely a very strong autobiographical element to her works, I think. Because a lot of it is about, like, this sort of struggle, particularly in Pride and Prejudice, with not wanting to conform to the social norms, but knowing there isn't a whole lot you can do about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And bringing out stories like what happened with Lydia, where Lydia made the wrong decision and how it had to be dealt with, in kind of a hidden way, that these wrong decisions had consequences, especially in that time, because of just those, that level of social strata and guidelines that they had during that time. So, again, I think it's, of course, timeless, but I think that we can all really respect and enjoy so much of Austen's free spirit and the what she did, I think, for women and for women writers to really a jumping off point, so to speak,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's funny because, Kelly from Happy Hobbit, she was saying that she wasn't really, I mean, I think that she likes Austen, but she's not really into it. So we're going to have to we'll talk about that with her another time. But,
Yeah.
but I think that ultimately she was such a amazing springboard, into what women can do and to defy that principle in writing, so to speak. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. She revolutionized the woman author and also the woman character. Basically, she really was a leap forward for both. Because she took that role that was traditional for women in these narratives of, like, the romantic victim, the frail, fainting, whatever, and kind of presented it from the woman's point of view and presented them as people. They were flawed people, but they were people who were dealing with a situation.
Yeah.
And she did it with humor and with, a kind of a sharp, ironic sense, which...
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people really considered her to be kind of subversive in the way that she
absolutely.
In the way
At
that
the
she
time?
wrote.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders if that's why they chose to publish those books as written by a lady, so that you're kind of telling the gentry men of the time who would be reading this, don't take this too seriously.
Yeah.
It was written by a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So this is my copy of Persuasion. It's not the most fancy copy, but I've underlined one of my favorite lines. And actually, the funny part about this is that I first heard this line in the movie The Lake House.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I saw that movie. And, good movie.
Is that the Keanu Reeves one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Okay.
And I love time travel. I love movies about time travel and stories about time travel. So, Josh, this is a plug for you to finish the Ben book.
Okay. It's coming along. It's coming along. Don't worry.
Yeah. But I just love it. It's chapter 8, and it's page 83. Well, chapter 8, it's like the third or fourth paragraph, and she's talking about how she was seeing Captain Wentworth and having to sort of deal with this idea that they were so kind of connected 8 years past, and now she's thinking back on that, and she says there could have been no two hearts so open, no taste so similar, no feeling so in unison, no countenance so beloved. And again, it's just her language, it's the way that she expresses these thoughts and bring these together. So that's my little Jane Austen.
Yeah,
it's a good line.
Yeah. It is.
So I love that.
It is. I don't want to miss out on what's going on in the chat here, because there's a continuing conversation going on about Gone with the Wind and about Suzanne's distaste for books about class struggle in the past.
Yeah, and
whereas and they were talking a little bit about how the Gone with the Wind taking place in wartime and how war upsets social mores and opens up more opportunities for women to take control of their own lives, which I would also say is true of like Little Women, also true of some of the later
definitely true
Downton
of
Abbey.
Downton Abbey, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So there is a very interesting conversation going on.
And Suzanne is talking about how she finds portrayals of this kind of class struggle to be, I believe she used the word vile. Yeah.
Or at least the characters.
Yeah. Or these characters, which I totally understand. Because it's so far removed from what we're used to today that it seems so backwards and so
Suzanne
and so unenlightened in a way.
Both said I'd have to run away. Like if I were in the circumstances of some of these women in the books, I would have to run away. But at that time, if you were in those circumstances and you ran away, there is probably a 97% chance you would end up a prostitute.
Yeah.
Like there are no other options.
Yeah, I mean you're a housemaid for life or whatever.
You know, Jane Austen was actually very fortunate in that her family was a very literary family. They were all very supportive. Her father made sure, even though when they couldn't afford for them to continue to get an education, they made sure they had access to. He had 500 books in his library. He made sure they had paper. He made sure she was able to write. Her sister was able to draw. Her brothers, promoted her stuff. They did plays at their house. If she had been born in different circumstances, it would have been much more of a struggle for her to be able to do what she did.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
So
and it would be a struggle, and I think people, particularly somebody like Suzanne, would probably sort of say, you know what, I'm willing to deal with that struggle.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel like most women today, even like looking at that situation in a hypothetical way, would probably say, you know what, I will take the struggle over this.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I don't feel like Austen is trying to present her situation. Her books are not as serious as a lot of Dickens things. She's not trying to present the evils of the world or people in the worst possible circumstances.
Right.
She's trying to present these people in their day-to-day lives. And this is what they had to do.
But also not romanticize it. Like I mean, her work is definitely satirical. And I think that's probably missed.
Suzanne says, yes, then it becomes a horrifying French musical and you're a tragic character doomed to die. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although Fantine had much more independence, but then she chose to have herself a little fling and have herself a little baby, and it turned out to be a bad decision for her future prospects.
Yeah, kind of did.
But
and it was,
even at that time, she was doing all right working in the factory. She had to give up her child to someone else, but she was surviving well enough, and so was her daughter, sort of.
But again, there were those circumstances out of her control that led her out of there when somebody discovered her secret and basically ratted her out.
Yeah. Which again was just the circumstances of being a woman at that time, who happened to be attractive to a very unfortunate man.
Yes.
So...
Arivandi is saying, I'd definitely be willing to deal with that struggle rather than deal with all that drama.
But a lot of the characters in these books don't have that much drama to deal with. I mean, a lot of them have generally okay lives.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in comfortable circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, there is like that drama that I think people would consider to be sort of like self-created, or like, my life is so perfect and boring, I need to do something to make it more interesting, so I'm going to have all this weird drama that actually means nothing in it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it actually did mean something back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Tycho says she does make a commentary on how wrong it is that women have had to struggle the way that they did, especially because they relied so much on male money. The beginning of Sense and Sensibility gets into that, like how women couldn't inherit, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big theme in Sense and Sensibility.
Mm-hmm. And Sense and Sensibility was her first published novel. It was the first full novel that she wrote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was actually... I think it was a deliberate choice of title, because those sentimental romance novels where she was drawing her inspiration for this satire she was writing were known as sensibility novels.
Mm-hmm.
So she was introducing basically an element of common sense in the viewpoint towards these sensibility novels.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that was deliberate, but that's what it's always seemed like. Suzanne says, "My life is so perfect and boring."
I think she's quoting me back to me. Or if they married, their money immediately belonged to their husband.
Yeah.
That's another big one.
Well, that is a lot of them had no choice but for their lives to be boring. You know, they could occupy themselves with charitable work, but they weren't encouraged to keep busy. They were encouraged to sit around and look pretty and entertain guests and, you know, be very much about making life comfortable for the men in their lives and making pleasant society for their friends. And that was, they really weren't encouraged to be productive.
No, they weren't. I mean, the fact that Austen was writing and trying to get published was, like, really subversive for that time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah.
Rovendier says they were basically belonging to their husband to take care of the household and breed children, so to say. Tycho says, pretty much like breeding stock.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Breeding stock that can also make your house pretty? I would say clean your house, but no, because they had servants, so they couldn't even do that.
No, they couldn't even do that, no.
They had nothing to do, these ladies. So it's true, they sat around and they made drama for themselves in a lot of cases. But a lot of cases, the drama was not something that they made themselves. It was just...
Because, I mean, there's definitely, like, especially in Britain, this idea, like, this very passive-aggressive sort of attitude towards the people you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that does is it causes a lot of, like, deep analysis and second guessing of everything, and that's how people drive themselves crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of it is, like, manufactured drama that may or may not have been there, but it's also, like, it's part of what your life is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because, I mean, in the gentry, like, it's very uncouth to, like, just call somebody out and say, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Like, you manipulate to get your point across.
It is part of what's kind of really entertaining and also kind of terrible in these books, is how often you see these people say horrible things about the others behind their backs.
Yeah.
And then to their face, they're just nothing but politeness and gentility. And, you know, that is...
And... You know, you watch a Real Housewives show and you see, oh, we haven't really changed all that much.
No, but...
Oh, dear.
I mean, it is still true that... Think what?
Did you guys want to talk Dickens now, or did you want to transition, or
Yeah, as long as we got you. Although I do want to say, Tycho said that's why books like The Yellow Wallpaper are so important. And I'm not familiar with that book. So
yeah.
What's The Yellow Wallpaper?
I'm gonna have to look that up.
But in the meantime, talk Dickens.
Yeah, let's.
Yes. So, my favorite Dickens is Great Expectations. There it is.
Yes.
All right.
I have read it. I mean, a lot of, because, as you know, I only became a reader last year, so I did actually read this last year. But I had only seen the movie up until that point. I think it was the version with Ewan Griffith.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think I saw a different version, like an older BBC version, but it was good. But so Great Expectations is definitely my favorite. And actually my kind of second favorite, or kind of, I don't know, I kind of have a top three, I guess is what it is. I love Little Dorrit. So this is my version of Little Dorrit. And it's, of course, huge. You can see how big it is. But, so it's kind of a challenge. But I love the BBC miniseries with Claire Foy as Dorrit, and Matthew McFadden, and Andy Serkis. He was super creepy in that.
he usually is.
He's good at being creepy. Yeah, that's kind of what he does. And then I also have David Copperfield, which is, of course, massive.
Of course.
And love that. But I think in my top three, I'm just having a little book session here, and that's what we do, is A Tale of Two Cities. And I love the old black and white version from, like, I don't know, like the 40s or something. And it's just it's just so well done and such a gorgeous portrayal. I think for me, as much as Dickens has these, of course, recurring themes of struggle and poverty and orphans and finding your, real parents and not finding them, and all those kind of things that he talks about. I think that for me, A Tale of Two Cities is just the ultimate story of sacrifice and just the things that you will give up for someone that you really love. And it's just such a powerful story. So it's definitely on my list to actually read. I've only seen the movie version of it, but I think that those would probably definitely be my top three. And it's interesting, as you mentioned before, that Jane Austen's books were really sort of getting popular, so to speak, more popular, I think in the mid-1800s, when Dickens was writing about, or writing during, or, a lot of his novels were during that time. And I actually have this amazingly huge, this book, it's called The Literary History of England, that someone gave me. And it's got like these gold edges. It's really kind of cool.
Nice.
Okay.
But it's got every single British author through time, author, poet, novelist. It's amazing. And I just kind of go through it every once in a while when I want to learn about, if I want to look at Blake, or if I want to look at Wordsworth, or, whatever, Keats, or whatever. Because I think I love poetry more than anything. But so it's got a whole kind of chapter on Dickens, and it talks about every book he wrote and why he wrote them, and just the different plots and the different time frames. So,
I stole the Oliver Twist is written by Dickens.
Yes.
I just haven't gotten there yet, despite Suzanne filling the chat room with lyrics. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that's definitely another good one.
Yes.
For sure. So he has so many, so I know we could all kind of go around, but I think those are definitely my top three favorites. And aside from the obvious, we all love I think we all can say that we love The Christmas Carol, because that's obviously one of my favorites. But I think as far as other outside of that, I think that those three would definitely be my top three. So, and Bleak House.
And Bleak House.
Bleak House. That other BBC miniseries with Bleak House was absolutely incredible.
The one with Gillian Anderson, the recent one. From a few years ago.
It was a couple of years ago, and it had like Bern Gorman as
yeah, that's that one.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was how like almost all my favorite British actors in it. That was stunning. Really, really well done. So that's another one. But yeah, I mean, obviously he has so many, so I know it's a lot to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I think on a personal level, when I just look at the different themes and I have, of course, I'm not an orphan, but I have some friends who were orphans and who wanted to find their real families, and some of these kind of stories came out in their life, and just really amazing things. But I think that when you think about Dickens' life and how he did walk through a lot of those struggles that he wrote about. So yes, and obviously David Copperfield being his most kind of autobiographical story, and just the power in that, the power to overcome, and to be just, I mean, so prolific in his time.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Christmas Carol, because I was thinking this before about the fact that that's probably his best known, that
by
most
far.
People are familiar with,
By
especially
far.
younger people.
Yeah, and I mean, I wanted to discuss it too, but I was like, we should sort of work up to that.
No, just from what I heard, that he wrote it in like a handful of weeks because he needed money.
Yeah, yeah.
Just,
and it became his big popular work.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny.
And I mean, I've actually played Scrooge before.
Oh my goodness!
Nice.
Yeah. Was it? Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah.
So they're doing it this year out in Samey.
Oh yeah.
For Christmas. So.
Oh, cool. But yeah, I was looking at his works, like the bibliography of Dickens. And what I noticed was after Christmas Carol, there are probably about 4 or 5 other Christmas stories that came out like in subsequent years after that. So like he sort of became like typecast as the Christmas guy after that.
He had an interesting sort of his publication, his method of publication was interesting, because he published a lot of his stuff in serialized form in magazines and stuff. And I think that was why there was a kind of a Christmas story every year.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting because a lot of the time he was writing as he was releasing them, which led to some changes happening in some of the books. Like I was reading that in Oliver Twist, that he was receiving some criticism because of the character of Fagin kept being referred to as the Jew. Like there's a number for this. It was like he's referred to as the Jew like 200 some odd times in the first 2/3 of the book. Yeah,
I remember.
And then word got to Dickens, and he said, "Well, no, it's not meant as a thing of Jews. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and it's just a fact that like a character in this position in society at this time is most likely to be a Jew." But I didn't realize I was so for the last like third of the book, it significantly reduced.
Yeah.
How often they call him the Jew.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's what's interesting is like Mark Twain got into trouble by using the N-word so much as he did in Huckleberry Finn, in referring to what was the character's name? I can never remember. But the freed slave character. But they kept using the N-word over and over and over again in reference to him, which was sort of the parlance of the day. But it's because of that Huckleberry Finn is still banned in most school book programs.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was another one. Oh, who was it? I don't remember which one of his novels it was. Someone was giving him criticism for how he was treating a handicapped character. Basically, I think his wife was handicapped, wasn't she?
I believe so, yeah.
And it was actually her physician who criticized him for the way he was dealing with this handicapped character, in light of his wife's condition. And he went on to kind of change that in the latter half of the novel. So, and it's kind of fun because there's a lot of talk nowadays about how authors and other artists get immediate feedback for their work because of the internet. Because you can release things online for people to read, and people can go on Twitter, can go on Goodreads, and can immediately get feedback, even as things are being written, and they can be adapted based on that, while TV series are airing, stuff like that. Changes that happen because of fan reactions. And that was happening back in Dickens' time.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So,
yeah.
That just struck me as interesting.
Suzanne is saying, but with Twain, wasn't it burned because it was too nice to blacks when it first came out, and later it was banned because it was too mean to blacks? That's certainly possible.
I don't know, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility.
Yeah.
When are we going to talk about Twain?
Well, I mean, we're talking about that whole period. We can discuss some Twain now.
I didn't do my prep work for Twain.
I know, because we only have 2 weeks left in this month, so we only have 2 shows left, and next week we're going to be talking about Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Jim was the guy's name. Thank you, Suzanne. But yeah, I would like to bring up Twain at some point.
Favorites, like if you had a top 3 Dickens books, what would your guys' favorites be? Like your top 3.
Well, the truth is, the only one that I've read from start to finish is A Christmas Carol. I mean, I've seen like lots of like film adaptations of his stuff, and I would have to say, like, as far as like stuff I've enjoyed like watching as a film, Tale of Two Cities, definitely one of the best ones I've seen, there was a mini-series of Great Expectations several years ago that came out that I really enjoyed.
Well, I read Great Expectations in high school. That was the only one that we were actually made to read as a school thing, and I really enjoyed Great Expectations. It actually, looking back on those long ago days, we're not specifying exactly how long ago, but I realized that Great Expectations was actually my first fanfic that I ever wrote. Because we had an assignment with that book. We had like 5 things to choose from. Analyze this scene, or talk about this, or discuss these characters, compare and contrast, or pick a scene and rewrite it from the perspective of a different character.
Oh.
So I rewrote the scene where Pip is reunited with Herbert Pocket from Herbert Pocket's point of view. And like years later, I was like, I wrote a Great Expectations fanfic.
That's so cool.
Didn't have the internet then.
Huh.
But
well, now that we think about it,
funny.
I did the same thing too in 5th grade. We were studying Greek mythology, and one of our assignments was write your own Greek myth.
Oh, there you go.
And and the subject I picked was the creation of the chameleon, and I wrote like this story about Theseus attempting to climb Mount Olympus to challenge Zeus to a duel, and Zeus created a creature that could blend in with the surroundings to thwart him.
Oh, nice.
And eventually Theseus battled the creature, and he threw the creature off the mountain into a bed of spikes, which then split it up into thousands of little chameleons, and they went out to populate the world.
That does sound like Greek myth to me. Just need a little bit more incest and
yeah, I know, right?
murdering of your own children and.
But the ending was so lame because like after that Theseus kind of just gave up and went back down. He was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
But anyway, yeah. So Great Expectations, excellent. One of my favorites forever. I also really like The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Which is his unfinished
work. Yeah. And part of what I like about it is the fact that it's unfinished, and because it is a mystery, basically you just never know.
Yeah.
There are certain clues as to how he intended to end it, but he never actually finished it, so no one actually knows for sure how he intended to finish it or who the guilty party actually is. And I saw the BBC miniseries of that not long ago, and they came up with they just came up with a completely original ending for it, and it was very interesting how they concluded it. I have no idea if it was anything like how the book was supposed to end, but...
Interesting.
But I ran with it. But I was just reading about all the different adaptations that have been done and the different ways they've chosen to end it, and they even staged a trial in London, decades ago, I don't remember exactly when, but like they put the main character on trial for this murder and made people actually present the case, for and against, and he was found guilty based on evidence in the book.
Okay.
But it was just very interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. Because, I've never read...
Oh, no, that's not even true. He wasn't found guilty. It was a hung jury.
Oh.
It was a hung jury. That was...
Wow.
Anyway,
Even
I thought that was very...
What a twist!
What a twist.
But Edwin Drood is interesting because it was a serialized book, but he only was able to write up to part 6 out of 12 before he died.
Yes.
So basically only half the book was ever published. So there's a whole second half that we really don't know.
Nope. It was when his first mention of the book was in a letter to someone where he wrote, it's a story about an uncle that kills his nephew. So that seems straightforward enough. But then, there were further mentions as he began working on it, or as he thought more about it and changed things, that kind of suggest that maybe that wasn't where he decided to go with it. So, Suzanne is proud of the fact that you used the word thwart.
Yes.
Good going, Josh. She's right. It's not used nearly
Good for
enough.
me. Good for me. I'm proud of that.
Arivandi
yes.
wrote a fanfic on the Gettysburg Address in middle school. First-person view of the day the address was given.
That's
Very cool.
Interesting. Ooh.
What?
A first-person view of the day that the Gettysburg Address was given. That's cool. I would enjoy reading that.
Yeah. Now, is it first person from Lincoln's perspective or from somebody in the audience hearing it? That's what I'd be interested in hearing.
One of Tycho's favorites is Little Dorrit, I think. I missed a little bit of what was going on in the chat up there.
Yeah.
Little Dorrit I actually haven't read, so I can't speak for it, but...
Neither have I. But I'm sure it's good.
It's on my list.
But one of the things that I was always intrigued by with Dickens was basically like his very scathing social commentary in all of his books, and I would say even particularly in A Christmas Carol. Because you have the character of Ebenezer Scrooge, who is pretty much just like a caricature of the embodiment of like just the bitter, angry old miser who hoards everything for himself, doesn't want to give anything to anybody, and considers any form of charity to be just wrong. Very Ayn Rand in a sort of way. But then he goes through this very personal journey, and also a very scary journey. Like I remember reading A Christmas Carol as a kid and being absolutely terrified of that initial meeting he has with the ghost of Marley.
I don't understand, because I saw the Barbie Christmas Carol and it wasn't that scary. I think he might just be a wimp.
Actually, the first time
I did actually watch the Barbie Christmas Carol, and it's hilarious.
I'll bet.
Hilariously funny.
I'll bet.
So.
The Muppets version is fun.
Oh, the Muppets version is awesome.
Great.
They did a great job with it. Also a little less scary.
Yeah.
But
I think the first on-screen adaptation of it I ever saw was Mickey's Christmas Carol, which is as entertaining today as it was then.
Yes.
But
and of course the whole character of Scrooge McDuck, which had his own TV series. And a great character. He was a great
Which,
character.
like, I sort of, like, look back on that and I'm like, why did you choose to make Scrooge Scottish?
Well, why not? So that he doesn't sound like every other,
I guess. It just seems so weirdly out of place.
I don't know.
The bad guy accent.
Yeah, that had to be it. But one of the things that I found so interesting about A Christmas Carol is that you really have this very strong transformation in Scrooge, where he goes from like this one extreme of I will keep everything for myself, I will treat everybody around me like dirt, I will live by myself in this big estate, and I won't do anything to help anybody. And through this one journey, he comes out and is like, I am a changed man, I will help everybody, I will change the world, I will use my wealth for good.
Now, what's kind of bizarre about Christmas Carol, I actually have a little bit of an issue with Christmas Carol, and maybe it's because he wrote it so quickly and with a relative lack of care for it.
Okay.
But I feel like the journey is odd, because he kind of, it starts out with past, and he sees how he used to be a warmer young man, and how he became cold and hard and selfish, and he softens a little bit, and then he hardens again. And then present shows up, and he kind of sees the other's circumstances, and you can see him starting to soften a little bit, but then he, hardens right. I can see, I've been right all along. And then Future comes and just kind of terrifies him with this idea of dying alone and friendless.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up and is softened. And I guess I never really understood that. I didn't really feel like that last step was very smooth.
You're right. It was not a very smooth step, and I sort of feel like other adaptations have sort of helped to like create a much more organic journey for him, because like the way I see it interpreted now is that in the past he's suddenly reminded of everything that he used to be, and he starts to warm up to that, and so like you have that initial warming up that is percolating throughout the journey. And so instead of like him becoming hardened in the present, a lot of adaptations show him continuing to soften even more in the present, and sort of realizing that he really has strayed from the path that he had way back when.
Yeah.
And then you top it all off with him witnessing a completely ignominious death. And suddenly he realizes, I have been wrong this whole time. And I agree, that doesn't come across as well in Dickens'
the seeds are definitely there.
Yeah.
You can see what it's supposed to be doing. It's just that it felt like that last step never quite worked.
No, I agree.
It needed a little bit more something. I don't know.
Yeah, the last step always... The Christmas Future always felt like the weakest of the three spirits.
I mean, I think the idea being that he's living in the moment of like, this is good for me now and I'm happy, and then being forced to confront the idea that when he's dead that all of that will mean nothing is what leads him to kind of embrace this, these older set of values that he's been reminded of. And
right. And a lot of that starts again with his even before he gets to Christmas Past, when he's talking with Marley. Marley is like very strongly admonishing him and warning him.
These chains which I forged in life.
Yeah.
And yours are going to be way worse than mine, he basically says.
Exactly.
Right, yes.
And
I think that it is...
Go ahead.
Sorry, Josh, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I think that I can see it. I've always seen it as a gradual progression, even in little increments, with all the three spirits and what they showed him. But ultimately, aside from the gradualness or just the series of events, I think it is the ultimate epiphany. It's like that's what the epiphany word is to me, that he has this revelation, and he brings all these pieces of his life together. And it all just, the light goes on, the literal light goes on, and he finally realizes what his end will be if he continues living his life this way. So I think that's kind of how. Yeah. So I see it as that combined kind of elements.
Yeah.
And I do think that.
Yeah, I do see it that way too. I don't think that the revelation with the future would have meant as much to him had he not been reminded of the person he used to be in the past and sort of let that percolate.
Yeah. And also been presented in the present with his views of like the Cratchit family and his nephew and everyone seeing what a warm family Christmas is like and kind of being reminded of what that really is like.
Yeah.
So no, I do feel like the progression is there. Definitely.
And everybody is talking about all the different adaptations of A Christmas Carol over the years.
And Tycho's helping me put the lyrics to DuckTales in everybody's head.
No, we are not singing that song. No.
She already sang in the chat.
I know she did, and I refuse to even look at it because, oh no, the song is already in my head.
Too late.
No, and all you have to do is say the word DuckTales, and the song gets into your head.
Earworms in the history of ever.
Oh my God.
I love that song.
You guys know that I work for Disney, so I mean, this is the bane of my existence.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, DuckTales is the worst earworm in the history of music. Let's see.
I'm not sure what they're talking about now. It's being Suzanne. Are you being censored by the chat again?
Suzanne is being censored by the chat. Suzanne, stop using your filthy mouth in the chat. What is wrong with you?
No more word "at" for you.
Well, I'll let someone else, if anybody will, I've been on for a while, so I'll let someone else Skype in or just let the line go. So
okay.
Well, no, thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and helping us so much. All right, you take care.
Okay, I'll jump back into the chat.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Now Suzanne is losing the words "you so."
Okay.
What? Suzanne, what are you doing?
The chat room just doesn't like you.
Are you just replacing random words with swears? Is that...
Like, you gotta... Okay, whatever.
Anyway.
So,
Chat room's like, you don't like Jane Austen, you don't belong here.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was Ro who was censored this time. Sorry,
Oh, that
Suzanne.
was Ro. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Alright, everybody's getting censored.
Yeah. Y'all, man, I don't know what's going on in there. Everybody's just got a potty mouth
words
today.
getting censored.
I know, yeah, the censorship algorithm in this chat room is weird.
Apparently.
So yeah, like, I mean, we were talking about A Christmas Carol quite a bit. And,
yes. So, let's talk about Oliver Twist. People were getting... Unless you had more you wanted to say about Christmas Carol.
No. Ava is asking if she can make a Skype call. I won't talk for long, I just want to show you my Austen books. Please do, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Definitely do.
I want to show you my t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's wearing your t-shirt
My Austen
there.
Torn Book Club. Mm-hmm. Now I'm scooting right behind the chat. There it is.
There you go.
I didn't have my Jane Austen t-shirts in the wash, so.
It's okay. I'm wearing my Game of Thrones t-shirt in celebration for later tonight.
Oh yeah, I might be changing before tonight.
Good. Let's see. Rose
Suzanne,
saying,
you have been singing Oliver.
Oh, there's
Oh,
Eva.
Rose says I'm almost innocent. Just tried to share a pic of my very old Charles Dickens
Aren't
book.
we all? Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Eva.
Hey, Eva.
Hi, Eve. Hi, Joe. I like your shirt, Eve.
Thank you. I like my shirt too.
And I have shirts for you. I need to get them to you. I keep forgetting.
But you have some books to share.
You have some books to show us, yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you. I have some very nice editions of. These are like the classic Penguin books. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that Persuasion?
Yeah, Persuasion.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Very cool. That's gorgeous.
And also have Northanger Abbey.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, wow.
I like those.
I like the simplicity of those covers. Yeah.
Yeah, these are really
nice.
beautiful.
Oh, okay. Pride and Prejudice. Very cool.
I've been collecting these, so I don't have all the books, but I just buy them when I see them in the stores.
Yeah. I have some like that too. But
yeah, Pride and Prejudice is my favorite.
What's on that one? It looks like swans.
I think it's swans. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
It's not an Austen book, but I just wanted to show you. It's very, very beautiful as well. It's Jane Eyre.
Ooh, that's gorgeous.
Well, Jane Eyre is also that same Dickens era. The Bronte sisters are also in the Victorian period, and that one
Jane Eyre
that
definitely
one is
falls into that category.
It's actually one of my all-time favorite books. I just read it like 3 years ago or something, but so I have to have this very nice edition of it.
Of course, yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think I only have one copy of any sort of book that even comes close to looking like that, and it's a copy of Poor Richard's Almanac.
No, I love collecting old books. I've always got my eye out at the secondhand store.
Yeah.
And that's where I found this one, The Love and Friendship, just last year. And it's the 1922 edition, and I had never read any of it before. But
that is so cool.
I was like, oh, such a great find. But these are my editions of the Jane Austen set. It's a set of 6 put out by Pantheon.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't find a good publication date, but it seems like around 1950. But they all have these kind of different colored, but the little flowers and then the title along the side. So,
That
but
is really pretty.
these were my father's set.
Oh, nice.
So,
Oh, cool. And one thing I should mention about Jane Austen, which I haven't yet,
they're not as pretty as yours.
which is very Tolkien related, which is the Pride and Prejudice, when the BBC did their big read competition of like what are the most beloved books in history, pretty much. Pride and Prejudice came in second to Lord of the Rings.
So take that, Jane Austen?
Yeah. So,
I guess.
No, because
that's
Austen
fantastic
was
that
like number 2 out of 200. And so
That is
that's
fantastic.
that's no small feat.
No.
What is Temple
I can
saying?
also tell you, I have I don't know if you have seen this cover. This is my version of Lord of the Rings.
Whoa.
Oh, nice.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's
That
very
is
nice cover.
gorgeous.
It's the Finnish version. So I also have this. I'm reading it.
Oh, okay.
It's
Gorgeous.
the English version.
Yeah, that's a very nice one.
Yeah, but I just bought this about 2 to 3 years ago. But this is the first one I own, so it's in Finnish. But
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Tycho says Jane Eyre is great. Maybe we can read the sci-fi version I've read sometime for book club. Sci-fi Jane Eyre.
I didn't even know there
Really?
was such a
I
thing.
didn't know that either. Do tell.
I'm going to have to discover this. I'm going to have to
Yes.
look this up and find that. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I also have the complete Charles Dickens and the complete Jane Austen on my Kindle. That's much less fun to show off. It's like,
Yeah.
I've actually never read Charles Dickens, so
no.
Okay.
There's a lot of his stuff I have not read yet.
Yeah, well,
'cause he's written a lot.
Yeah, he
but-
was a very prolific author.
yeah.
And I mean, I've only read.
Oh, Jenna Starborn! You know what? I am a big fan of Sharon Shin. I have not read Jenna Starborn yet, and I didn't realize it was Jane Eyre.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna have to move that one up my list.
I did not. I've never
No.
heard of either Jenna Starborn or Sharon Shin, but I'm
I
definitely gonna have to check it out
Just
now.
read Sharon Shin's Troubled Waters recently, and I've
Okay.
got Royal Heirs on hold at the library.
Okay.
So she's got some good stuff.
And-
I'm reading Heart of Gold of hers right now,
Okay.
and really like the 12 Kingdoms series. So if you're a
Very
fantasy
cool.
fan, I highly recommend Sharon Shin. She has young adult and adult stuff, but it's all pretty easy as far as fantasy goes,
Okay.
and good characters.
I'm definitely
Yeah,
gonna have to check
I'm
that out.
definitely moving Jenna Starborn up the list now.
And of course, Suzanne has to bring up Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Of course.
Like I was,
Which is now
I was
the-
waiting for that to come up, and I have a copy of it, but I haven't read it yet.
I read part
I
of it.
haven't read it either. Yeah.
I read part of it. There's a whole series now, but
Yeah, well, there's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. There's Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, I think.
Tycho Troubled Waters is really good. I haven't read Shape of Desire yet, but Troubled Waters is excellent.
I'm gonna have to look up Jenna Starborn. That sounds really cool. But I'm reading so much now anyway. Like I'm reading Beowulf. I'm reading Hollow City just for the fun of it. That's the sequel to Miss Peregrine. And
Okay.
and I'm also reading. Well, I need to start the next Harry Dresden book, which I haven't read yet.
Don't we all? I'm actually 2 behind on Harry Dresden now, which is bad.
Oh, okay. The last one was really good. And I'm also trying to read the book that I've selected for Book of the Month for July, which I'm not telling you about yet.
Aw. Well, I just got a book unexpectedly in the mail from my aunt called A Dragon Lover's Treasury of the Fantastic, published in 1994.
That
And
sounds
it's got
amazing.
stories from Anne McCaffrey, Orson Scott Card, and a relatively obscure author called J.R.R. Martin.
Oh, that guy.
Like, you can tell this book is old because his name is, like, buried somewhere in the middle of the back
right.
cover.
I saw you posted a picture
Where-
of that.
Now I feel like it would probably be the first in giant letters on the front. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that one. I've been reviewing my Austen and Dickens this week, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm super excited about
Whoa.
that one.
What was that? Was that?
That was an ad.
Oh, okay.
I put the voice down, but whenever an ad comes up,
Oh, yeah.
then I.
Yeah, I gotta love that. Let's see.
Eru says, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a juicy brain." I think that's how the original went. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I'm pretty sure that's how it went. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Juicy, delicious brains. So
But yes, I'm all in favor of old, beautiful copies of good books.
Yeah.
If we were in my house, we could look at my shelves and I could show you.
I.
But I always have to bring a couple of mine with me when I come here, just like a talisman.
Oh, you should. You absolutely should. Yeah. Most of my really good old copies of books are still in storage back in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I've been talking with my family to try to get all that shipped out here, but of course that's not cheap.
No.
So maybe a little bit at a time.
Yeah. No, I brought most of mine with me when I moved out here just because I really wanted to have them all. And
Yeah,
I've been working on that ever since.
I was trying to bring them out here when I moved out here, but I only had so much space in my car, and I kind of needed furniture.
Yeah, yeah. Furniture is useful to have, I guess.
Usually. Yeah, I think at some point, like, we're all going to have to just...
Tycho says send it book rate, much cheaper. This is true.
This is true.
It's the slow boat.
Yeah.
It's the only one time I did that and it looked like someone had knifed the box when it got to me.
Really?
But usually it's fine. I don't know what happened. It didn't actually damage any of the books.
Okay, that's
good. It just came with a big, like, slice of the side of it that I did not understand.
Okay.
But mostly it's worked out fine for me.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is they're very picky. You can't put anything else in the box.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've done media mail before, and yeah, they are very picky about what you put in the box.
Yeah, my mom was actually just sending me a box with like my last few books that I had at her house, and I had put in there. What did I put in there? I just put in a game.
Wait a second, Ava. Light of the King is asking you, what is your favorite line or part of Pride and Prejudice?
Well, I'm not going to quote a line because I'm not very good at remembering that stuff, but I think I can't remember which chapter it is, but the part I love the most is like the conversation between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth when he proposes to her the first time. I just think that is like the way they speak to each other is like, I just love the language and the stuff they're saying. I just love reading that part. So I think that's my favorite part of the book.
Yeah. No.
And just the reason I love Austen is because like the time period is like Regency England is like my favorite time period, and because she lived like that time, and it's kind of like time travel. You can go and like you can read something that someone wrote at that time. If you understand what I mean, it's like
yeah.
You can see the world through her eyes. Like it's not something that someone just made up. It's like it's kind of like real life, and she knew like she can, so that's why I love it.
Yeah. No, I follow, because historical fiction is really fun, but it's to have something like Austen or Dickens where they were writing about the time that they lived in. Yeah. It gives it a much more rich and real feeling.
Like you get a much stronger window into what that world was actually like.
That's what I mean.
And they both were writing a lot about what they knew.
Yeah.
Charles Dickens about, being in the poorhouse and having his family in debtor's prison, and all the stuff that he wrote about was all stuff that he experienced. And
And Light of the King is saying we need a Jane Austen time travel movie, and then Temple points out that there is one. It's called Lost in Austen, which I've never seen, but it was kind of like it was a fan of Austen who I guess travels back to that time period, or travels into the world of that book, like with those characters and everything.
I don't know that one. Although, has anyone read the Jasper Fforde novels, the Thursday Next novels?
I haven't.
The first one is called An Air Affair, and it's basically about a kind of a time-traveling policing agency.
Okay.
Where they can actually travel through books. So the agents can actually, and criminals can escape into books, and the people have to follow them into these books, and they interact with the characters from the books. And obviously the first one is J.R.R.
Okay.
But she goes through a whole bunch of interesting stories.
Interesting.
And I've only read the first one, but I have a friend or two who are huge fans of that series.
Okay.
Oh, it's...
Yeah, time travel can be fun, especially when you play around with it a little bit like that. So, apparently, Lost in Austen is actually the girl switches places with Elizabeth. That's interesting.
Uploaded the picture of the book on Facebook.
With mention...
I assume that's Torn Book Club.
To Torn Book Club. Then people should have an
easier time finding it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I have to check that out.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely going to... What was the name of the author's name again?
Jasper Ford.
Jasper
But it's
Ford.
2 F's. It's F-F-O-R-D-E. I think
Okay.
he's Swedish. I'm just making that up.
Okay.
It's 2 F's. Austen Land movie? I have not.
Okay. I think
Light
that's
of
on
the King
Netflix. That's the one with, what's her name from Felicity? Where
Yeah, Carrie Russell.
Carrie Russell, that's it. She goes to this
He
place
has a
that is
Hobbit
basically
joke in it.
just like it's a Regency mansion that has been completely done up like a Jane Austen novel, and it's basically for women to go and live a weekend in the life of a character of a Jane Austen novel. And this one woman goes and basically has her own Austen-esque
Romance entanglement.
yeah, like she ends up falling for 2 of the guys who are hired to be like the hunky Darcy type characters.
Ah.
Okay. One last thing, then I will get off camera.
Yeah,
okay,
no,
okay,
please.
no worries.
Yeah. My favorite adaptation, like TV adaptation, is the BBC version. I think it's 2008.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Of Sense and Sensibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the one with Keira
Yeah.
Knightley, right? And
with-
or Emma Thompson? Is that
No,
the one?
no. No, this is the BBC version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's I can't remember it has the guy from Downton Abbey. I can't remember his name because I don't really watch that show. But
Okay.
The one that died in the car crash or something.
Oh, him. We
Yeah.
don't like him.
Yeah. He's Edward Ferrars in this.
Okay.
But it's
Dan
really
Stevens.
good. I
Light of the
recommend
King
this
says
if you
Dan
haven't
Stevens.
seen it.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Okay.
well, thank you for coming on and
Yeah,
showing us your
thanks.
collection. That was gorgeous.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah. And take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay.
Has anyone... Aruvandi says, has anyone read the book Jane Austen Ruined My Life?
I have not.
I haven't, but I've heard of that one. I've heard it's pretty entertaining.
Suzanne, you might want to read that one. You might enjoy it.
No, it reminds me of something, and I can't remember what now. I'm going to think about that for a minute.
Okay. I think it was Aravandi maybe who mentioned the yellow wallpaper earlier.
Yes.
And so I looked it up on the
think it
Wikipedia. I can't remember who mentioned it. Whoever mentioned the yellow wallpaper,
Tycho?
please speak up because I can't remember who did. But
Anyway.
I was looking it
I
up
think it was
on the Wikipedia, and it sounds really interesting. Like I honestly had never heard of this before, but it's basically about a woman who descends into psychosis because of how confined she is by her husband. And yeah, in the end, she imagines there are women creeping around behind the patterns of the wallpaper and comes to believe she is one of them. That's so creepy. Okay, so it was Temple who mentioned it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tycho did say it was a woman who loses her mind because of the constraints of society.
Yeah, but wow, that is
Interesting.
It's a
when
short
was that one
story.
published?
1892. Okay.
Huh.
So that would have been that was definitely that would have been subversive, and I can see why it's considered a very strong feminist work.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to look that up. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Uh,
That is pretty cool.
yeah. So
Maybe it was Jane Austen Ruined My Life. I haven't read it, but maybe it was someone talking about it, but it was something about, like, it creating unrealistic expectations for men, basically, and for romance. And
yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the movie Gaslight.
Oof,
with-
creepy movie.
Very creepy movie, which has sort of become its own trope in its own term, like gaslighting, which is about a husband who is deliberately doing subtle things around the house to make the wife think that she's going crazy. So that basically whenever she comes up with something that she wants to talk with him about, he's like, well, I can't talk with you about that because you're clearly crazy. Mm-hmm. And so it was like this very elaborate way of him to just sort of shut her out of discussions.
Well, I think he ended up completely driving her.
Oh yeah, she went completely
mad,
insane.
Because she was also gassing her, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he was poisoning her and he was driving her crazy. Mm-hmm. And
I think she ended up killing herself or getting committed. I don't remember exactly.
I think she got committed in the end. I don't think she actually killed herself. It's been a while since I saw it.
Well, there were also, I think, 2 different versions of it. There was an updated version of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where I think they changed some things around, including maybe the way it ended.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't remember now. I never saw any. I never saw it, but...
It's one of the creepier movies I've seen. Mm-hmm. Like... That and the original, The Haunting. Not the new one with Liam Neeson that is complete garbage. The original one. And even House on Haunted Hill. Like, this was a very strong theme back then of, like, people, like, deliberately manipulating circumstances to make people think that they're going crazy or they're being haunted or something like that. And so you get that in The Haunting, like, very... very deeply to like the point where like you really don't know what is real and what isn't. Like, is this a prank or is this an actual haunting? And like you sort of see like the main character like sort of losing her mind trying to figure this out.
Interesting.
In the new version that came out, I think probably about 10 years ago or something like that, it's very clear this is a ghost. This is an evil ghost, and it's one by one killing everybody.
Yeah. No, it is not just in your head.
Yeah.
But back to Victorian literature.
Yes.
It was brought up that the Bronte sisters were also around that time. So
yeah.
if anyone wanted to talk a bit about Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights,
yeah.
If you want to talk about a book where I find it really, really hard to sympathize with any of the characters, Wuthering Heights is it.
Yeah.
Jane Austen doesn't do that to me. I think because her books are more lighthearted and the characters are clearly flawed, but they also seem to be good people.
They're likable.
They're likable.
Yeah.
They're most of them. But
Wuthering Heights,
man,
not so much.
Wuthering Heights, man. I don't know.
Talk about manipulation.
I don't even know.
Ugh.
But
yeah.
But the Bronte sisters are interesting because it was later, but it was still a period when there weren't a lot of women authors.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had these 3 sisters who set out to kind of publish together and become authors together, and at least 2 of them are created timeless classic novels. Mm-hmm. But...
Yeah, and I mean, I've never read Jane Eyre. I just sort of know, like, the basic sort of story. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I've never read Wuthering Heights, but I have seen movie adaptations of it, mm-hmm. and yeah, there is not one likable character in
Light
that.
says, "Oh, Heathcliff," and I think that about sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, Heathcliff.
Oh, Heathcliff. But yeah, Suzanne was talking about a lot of the characters in Austen not being relatable, mm-hmm. Which, to a degree I totally understand. And I mean, I can't say I sympathize with much of what happens in Austen, but I do find the characters likable. Mm-hmm. Wuthering Heights, they are not relatable, they are not likable, they are awful human beings, every single one of them.
Yeah. The Pat Benatar song about Heathcliff. Light, I'm not familiar with that song.
She wrote a song about Heathcliff? How did I not know this? So what are, like, some other...
There's a version of Jane Eyre from the point of view of Rochester's wife that's really good. It's called Wild Sargasso
Sea. I've actually heard of that one. I didn't realize that.
Huh. I didn't know that either.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard of Wild Sargasso Sea. I just didn't know that it was sort of an alternate view of Jane Eyre. Or Wide Sargasso Sea, I should say. Wild. As in Oscar Wilde. Who is another one.
A little bit later.
Yeah.
Late 1800s.
Late 1800s, yeah.
I am a big Oscar Wilde fan.
I love Oscar Wilde. He's the greatest.
I did come across, when I was researching stuff, the fact that he was quoted about the old Curiosity Shop, mm-hmm. saying you would be hard-pressed not to cry at the death of Little Nell with laughter. Like, that it was just so pathetic and overdramatic that he found her completely unsympathetic and just hilarious.
This is why I love Oscar Wilde, because he is just so delightfully snarky.
He is.
And
He is.
And also wrote like a really darn good horror book. Like his only novel was The Portrait of Dorian Gray.
Yeah.
Which was really kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? They did a movie of it several years ago.
A movie of Wuthering Heights or of Jane Eyre?
Probably Jane Eyre. I seem to remember there was a Jane Eyre movie.
Oh, the women's writing class. I missed something that Tycho said.
Okay. I do remember there being a new movie of Jane Eyre not too long ago. Here,
Just wanted to see.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'm always wary of scrolling up.
Oh, Wide Sargasso Sea got a movie version.
Oh, okay. That's probably why I know it.
Interesting.
But I don't want to talk too much about Dorian Gray or that whole area, because then we sort of get into the Penny Dreadful stuff, which I want to talk about, but I want to save that for October when we talk about horror. It's much more appropriate.
Okay.
And believe me, I have tons to say about it. So yeah, it was a movie of Wide Sargasso Sea that she was talking about. Okay. All right. So we're at about an hour and a half now. I think this is a good point for us to wrap it all up. But thank you, Eve, for coming. And
thank you for having me back.
Of course.
Thanks everybody for jumping in, and Eeva
and Light of the King.
Light of the King for joining us.
Yeah, and for everybody else who was in the chat, we had Temple and Ravandir and Aravandi and Suzanne, and who else did we have here?
I Stole
the One Ring. We got quite a few, it seems. Yeah. So I Stole the One Ring, and Suzanne, and I think I've covered just about everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for showing up, and for enjoying and for being a part of our second in Classics Month with Dickens and Austen and a few others here and there. Let's see. Temple is saying, if anyone has seen Wild, Orlando Bloom has a small part in it. It was from before Lord of the Rings. Interesting. I have not seen Wild, and I've always meant to, because I freaking adore Stephen Fry.
Yeah,
and he plays Oscar Wilde in that.
Me too.
So I do need to check that out at some point.
Got a whole list of things we need to check out now.
I know, this list just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. I'm reading more now because of this book club than I have in like the last 10 years.
One of my friends posted a thing on Facebook a couple months ago, I think, but it was just, there's nothing sadder than the moment you realize that you will never have enough time in your life to read everything and watch everything and whatnot. There will always be more. I was like, I do not accept that. Mm-hmm. I will read and watch everything.
And Temple is saying, that was fun. Thanks, guys. We missed Jan making reference to a certain Cape Crusader. And you know what?
Where is Jan?
I don't know. And I re-watched The Dark Knight Rises this weekend specifically for that. I'm serious.
Jan,
I did.
You missed your window.
Oh, you missed it, Jan. Oh, you're gonna kick yourself when you watch this.
Oh well. Next time.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all
great discussion.
for a wonderful episode. This will be going up on YouTube shortly. If you're watching on YouTube, then you are in the future and you are enjoying all sorts of wonders. And next week, we will be discussing Sherlock Holmes, which has sort of a nice connection to The One Ring and Tolkien and everything because of Benedict Cumberbatch, who we all love.
We do.
So I will see you all next week, and until then, never stop reading.